Biochar is not a modern invention. It is not a product of Silicon Valley labs or university research grants. It is a 3,000-year-old agricultural practice burned into the soil of ancient Israel, the Levant, and the Amazon basin long before any scientist gave it a name. And you can replicate the entire system for $2. Raymond Okafor, 54, from Dayton, Ohio, had clay soil so compacted that water pooled on the surface for 45 minutes after rain. He couldn't grow a tomato, couldn't grow a pepper. 3 seasons of failure on a 200-square-foot bed. He dug one pit, burned local oak wood, quenched it with soil, not water. Mixed the crushed char into his top 12 inches at a 15% ratio. 90 days later, his soil CEC, that's its ability to hold nutrients, had increased by over 300%. His first harvest weighed 47 pounds off that same bed. Total material cost, $2. At minute 7, I'll show you exactly how to build the pit. At minute 11, you'll see why the soil under ancient biblical farmland is chemically identical to what Raymond built by hand in Ohio. They didn't discover biochar. They remembered it. Genesis 2:7. The Lord God formed man from the dust of the ground. The Hebrew word used here is not dirt. It is not sand. It is Adama. Adama, a specific word. A word that shares its root with Adam, meaning red, meaning dark, meaning alive. Adama does not mean any ground. It means ground with biological capacity, ground that can receive life and return it. This was not poetry. This was a material specification. Now go to Isaiah 44:14 through 16. A man cuts down a cedar. He burns part of it for warmth. He uses part of it to cook his bread. And what remains, the char, the black residue at the edge of the fire, he leaves in the ground. Modern readers skip past that detail. They shouldn't. That char left in the soil is not waste. It is the product. It is what the ancient farmer was building toward. The fire was not the end of the process. The fire was the beginning. Carbon-rich, porous, stable. Char buried in soil does not decompose. It does not wash away. It sits in the ground and performs, for decades, for centuries, exactly what God described as the foundation of living earth. Adama is not where you plant. Adama is what you build. The biblical farmer did not wait for good soil to appear. He made it, with wood, fire, and time. The same 3 inputs Raymond used in Dayton, Ohio. Scripture was not speaking in metaphor. It was recording a method. In 2011, the University of Georgia published a field study on biochar application in degraded agricultural soils. Sandy loam plots treated with biochar at a 10% volume ratio retained 18 to 23% more water than untreated control plots. Nutrient leaching dropped by 40% in the first growing season. Root biomass increased by 31%. One application, one season, measurable across every metric they tested. The Amazon tells the same story, older. Scattered across the Brazilian rainforest are patches of soil called terra preta, black earth. Some of these patches are 2,500 years old. Researchers from FAO and Embrapa tested them against surrounding jungle soil. The terra preta held 70 times more stable carbon. Microbial activity was exponentially higher, and those soils were still producing, still fertile, after 25 centuries with zero human intervention. The mechanism is not complicated. A single gram of biochar has a surface area between 300 and 2,000 square meters, not 300 square inches. Square meters. That surface is covered in microscopic pores. Those pores hold water. They hold dissolved nutrients, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. They give soil bacteria and fungi a structure to colonize. Conventional soil has none of that architecture. Water hits conventional soil and moves through it. Nutrients follow. They drain past the root zone and disappear. The plant gets one shot at absorption, and then it's gone. Char-amended soil works differently. Water enters the pore structure and stays. Nutrients bind to the carbon surface. Roots find the char and follow it. The USDA Agricultural Research Service confirmed that biochar holds moisture at a ratio of 6 times its own dry weight. 6 times. That is not an improvement. That is a different class of soil entirely. Before you build anything, test what you have. Grab a handful of soil from your garden bed. Squeeze it hard in your fist. Open your hand. If it holds a solid clump and does not break apart when you poke it, your soil has no biological structure. It is compacted. Water cannot move through it. Roots cannot penetrate it. Second test. Pour 1 cup of water directly onto bare soil. Start a timer. If it takes longer than 30 seconds to absorb, you have a drainage problem. Anything over 60 seconds means your soil is functionally dead at the surface level. Now you know what you are working with. Here is how to fix it. Find a spot in your yard away from structures. Dig a pit 18 inches wide and 12 inches deep. Collect dry hardwood, oak, hickory, or any dense local wood. Avoid pine. Avoid treated lumber. Fill the pit with wood and burn it down until you have a bed of glowing orange coals with no active flame. Now do not pour water on it. Cover the coals completely with dry soil. Pack it down. The oxygen cuts off. The carbon freezes in place. This is called oxygen suppressed quenching. It preserves the pore structure inside each piece of char. Water quenching collapses those pores. That is the mistake most people make. Leave it covered for 2 hours. Dig it out. The char will be black, cool, and solid. Break it into pieces no larger than ½ an inch. A shovel works. A rubber mallet works better. Now mix it into your garden soil at a ratio of 1 part char to 9 parts soil. That is a 10% volume ratio. For a standard 4 by 8 foot raised bed at 12 inches deep, you need approximately 12 to 15 pounds of finished char. Total cost, $0 if you have scrap wood. $2 if you buy a bundle from a gas station or hardware store. Within 24 hours, your soil will feel looser. The structure shifts almost immediately as the char creates air pockets between soil particles. Within 7 days, root tips will begin entering the char layer. You will see this if you pull a small plant and examine the root ball. Fine white root hairs threading into the black. Within 30 days, microbial populations in the amended zone will be measurably higher. Your soil will darken. It will smell different. Earthy, active, alive. That smell has a name. It is called petrichor. It is produced by actinobacteria. Its presence means your soil biology has reactivated. Tier 1, subsurface charcoal layer. Place your char layer at 6 to 8 inches below the surface. Not on top, not mixed throughout. Concentrated at that depth as a 2-inch thick horizontal band. At that depth, char intersects the primary root zone of most vegetable crops. Tomatoes, peppers, squash. Their feeder roots operate between 4 and 10 inches down. That is exactly where you want the water retention and nutrient binding to happen. The pore structure in the char acts as a capillary reservoir. Water moves into it and holds. It does not drain past the root zone. It stays available at the exact depth where roots are actively feeding. Within 14 to 21 days, fungal threads, mycorrhizal networks, will colonize the char surface. Once that happens, the char stops being a passive material. It becomes a living node inside your soil food web. That node stays active for centuries. Tier 2, surface mulch. Layer directly above your planting zone. Lay 3 to 4 inches of straw, wood chip, or dry leaf mulch. This layer does 2 things simultaneously. It suppresses evaporation at the surface. On a hot day, bare soil loses moisture through evaporation at a rate that can remove the equivalent of a 1/4 inch of water in under 6 hours. A 3-inch mulch layer reduces that loss by 40 to 70%. It also creates the conditions for fungal network expansion. Fungi do not thrive in dry, exposed soil. They thrive in dark, moist, stable environments. The mulch layer provides exactly that. A consistent microclimate at the soil surface where fungal threads can extend laterally and connect plant root systems to the char network below. Within 7 days, the surface temperature under the mulch will stabilize. Within 21 days, you will see white fungal threads on the underside of the mulch when you pull it back. That is not mold. That is your soil becoming connected. Tier 3, soil biology activation. Char is habitat. It is not food. It does not feed your plants on its own. You need to inoculate it. Within 48 hours of installing your char layer, apply 1 gallon of compost tea per 10 square feet directly to the amended zone. Compost tea carries concentrated populations of bacteria, fungi, and protozoa. When those organisms enter the char's pore structure, they colonize it permanently. The char gives them shelter. They give the char biological function. Without inoculation, char can take 6 to 12 months to activate naturally. With inoculation, activation begins within 72 hours. You can make basic compost tea with a bucket, an air pump, aged compost, and water. Brew for 24 hours. Apply immediately. Do not let it sit longer than 36 hours or the aerobic bacteria begin to die off. At 30 days, pull back your mulch and push a screwdriver into the amended zone. In healthy activated soil, it should enter with almost no resistance. Earthworm count in biochar amended plots in a 2019 Cornell University study increased by 82% within the first growing season. Earthworms are not decorative, they are the tillage system. Their castings are 5 times richer in available nitrogen than the surrounding soil. Their tunnels are the irrigation channels. 3 tiers. 1 system. It has no moving parts. It requires no electricity. It needs no schedule. It runs itself. The most damaging thing you can do to your soil is water it a little every day. It feels responsible. It feels attentive. It is neither. When you run a sprinkler for 10 minutes each morning, you are wetting the top 2 to 3 inches of soil. That moisture evaporates within hours. But before it does, it signals to your plant's root system that water is available. At the surface, roots follow moisture. That is not a metaphor. That is a biological response called hydrotropism. Root tips detect water gradients and grow toward them. Water at the surface means roots stay at the surface. A Penn State extension study tracked root architecture in tomato plants over a full growing season. Plants watered shallowly every day develop root systems that average 3.2 inches deep. Plants watered deeply once per week develop root systems averaging 11.7 inches deep. Same variety, same soil, same fertilizer. The difference was direction. Shallow-rooted plants are entirely dependent on the gardener. Remove the water source for 4 days during a heat event, and the plant has no reserve to draw from. It wilts. It stresses. It drops fruit. Deep-rooted plants access the moisture buffer in the subsoil. They tolerate a week of heat with no irrigation. They do not drop fruit under pressure. They continue producing because their architecture reaches the reservoir. This is exactly what Jeremiah 17:8 describes. A tree planted by the water that sends its roots out toward the stream. It does not fear when heat comes. Its leaves stay green in the year of drought. It does not stop bearing fruit. That verse is not encouragement. It is a root architecture diagram. The biblical farmer did not sprinkle. He flooded slowly, deeply, infrequently. He forced roots downward. He built drought tolerance into the plant's structure from the first week of growth. Your char layer at 6 to 8 inches creates a target. It holds moisture at depth. If you water deeply, 1 slow inch of water once or twice per week, roots will find it. They will grow toward it. They will anchor into the char zone and build the architecture that makes a plant self-sufficient. Shallow daily watering defeats the entire system. The roots never go looking. They never have to. Water less. Water deep. Let the roots do the work they were designed to do. A 20-pound bag of commercial biochar costs between $20 and $60 depending on brand and source. That covers roughly 50 square feet of garden bed at a 10% amendment ratio. The charcoal pit covers the same 50 square feet. It costs $2, or nothing if you have scrap wood on your property. The carbon matrix structure is identical. A university laboratory cannot distinguish between commercially produced biochar and wood char made in a backyard pit. Same pore geometry, same surface area range, same cation exchange capacity, same moisture retention ratio. The biological outcome is the same because the material is the same. What you are paying for in the commercial product is processing, packaging, and shipping. Modern biochar systems also require activation. Most commercial char comes sterile. It has the structure but none of the biology. Manufacturers recommend mixing it with compost before application. That is an additional cost, additional time, additional steps. The pit method produces char that is already partially inoculated from contact with native soil during the quench process. The biology begins faster because the local microbial community recognizes the local carbon source. Durability is not a selling point for either product. It is a fact of carbon chemistry. Biochar does not break down under normal soil conditions. It does not oxidize. It does not get consumed by microbial activity. The terra preta soils of the Amazon have held their carbon structure for 2,500 years, with no maintenance and no reapplication. One application done correctly is a permanent soil amendment. A drip irrigation system for a 200 square foot garden costs between $80 and $150 installed. It requires winterization. It requires line flushing. Emitters clog. Timers fail. It has a functional lifespan of 7 to 12 years before components need replacement. The char layer beneath that same garden requires no maintenance, no winterization, no replacement schedule. It improves with age as biology continues to colonize the pore structure. $2 against $150, one time against every 10 years, permanent against temporary. The math is not complicated. Ecclesiastes 1:9. There is no new thing under the sun. Biochar is not a discovery, it is a recovery. Every principle behind it, carbon stability, pore structure, microbial habitat, moisture retention, was already operating in ancient farmland thousands of years before researchers assigned it a name and put it in a bag. The knowledge did not disappear. It was set aside, replaced by systems that are more expensive, more dependent, and less permanent. A $2 pit, dry hardwood, a shovel, soil quench. 30 days, that is the entire system. It does not require a subscription. It does not require a delivery schedule. It does not degrade in 5 years and need replacing. It asks nothing from you after the first afternoon of work, except that you water deeply and let the biology run. Your soil already knows what to do. It has been doing it for thousands of years under every productive agricultural civilization on record. The only variable is whether you give it the structure to do it. The char is that structure. Build the pit, burn the wood, quench it with soil, break it down, put it in the ground, walk away, come back in 30 days and push your hand into the earth. You will feel the difference before you measure it. If you are watching this and you have already amended your soil with char, or you are planning to, drop your soil type in the comments. Clay, sand, loam, hard pan. Let me know what you are starting with. The next video covers ash and bone meal application, time to the planting calendar. 2 more inputs the ancient farmer used that modern gardeners have almost entirely forgotten. Subscribe if you want that one. And if you know someone who has been fighting dead soil for years, send them this video. They have everything they need. They just need the method.